Welcome to Walk Talk, the Faith in Motion podcast, where two regular guys talk about their walk with Christ. We're not pastors, we're not priests, just passionate followers of Jesus, here to give an account of the hope that lies within us. We don't shy away from the tough topics or the challenging scriptures. We just share our faith, and we hope that you find it helpful. We're your hosts, Randy Dupree and PJ Verdon. Thanks for joining us today. All right, man, here we go.
Yes, sir. Let's
All
talk
right,
about it.
let's do it. Let's do it. All right, so I know we were kind of talking back and forth here on how we want to kick this off. For me, I think just to kind of follow up on some of our previous conversations, we've talked a lot about grace, and we've talked about how it's our faith that saves us.
Correct.
And I know that for some people, when we're talking about faith saving us and us not being able to lose the grace of God and how we just need to rest in the completed work of the cross, that for some people it leads them to asking the question, well, why should I do anything at all? Or conversely, they may ask, well, why not just do whatever I want? And we talked about that a little bit in a previous episode, right? Where Paul even gets into it and says, should I continue to sin so that grace should abound? And he says, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Right. Yep.
Right. And so, but as I was thinking about that question even more, I was just thinking about it the last few days, and I was thinking, there's some assumptions behind a question like that. Either question, like, why shouldn't I just do whatever I want? Or, why shouldn't I just continue to sin? Or why should I do anything? There's assumptions behind that. And I think for me, those assumptions come from the fact that maybe we don't spend enough time talking about the purpose of the Christian life and what we're actually saved for. Um, or even what the Bible says is the meaning of life in general. So I was thinking today maybe we could talk about the meaning of life. What do you think?
Man. I'm sure people would be very interested to know that we may have figured it out. Let's get
We
into
figured
it.
it out. Just two regular guys here with a podcast. With great podcasts comes great powers and great responsibilities and
That's right.
something like that. So yeah,
Yep.
maybe that's why we were able to figure it out. I don't know, but now we get to enlighten everybody on the meaning of life. But as I say that, I have no idea what you're going to say the meaning of life is, and you have no idea what I'm going to say.
Right. 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 And I'm sure, people listening might be like, wait a minute, that's not what the meaning of life is to me. So I think it's one of those things that, to some degree you would expect it to be more universal, right? But I think it's almost more personal, the meaning of life.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Absolutely. So let's get into it. So I'll give you the synopsis of what I think, and then you tell me where you're at on this. Because
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, if I'm going to just oversimplify the heck out of everything, I'm going to say that the meaning of life is love.
Right.
And the reason why I would say that is because I would say that, God is a triune God who existed eternally and was always in a state of love, in a relationship with his triune self and expressing that love. And from my perspective, he created humanity for that to continue and expand that relationship and therefore expand that love.
Right.
So to me, I mean, there's songs about it, and it might be cliche, but to me, love is the answer. It is the meaning.
What's love got to do with it? No.
What does love got to do
Right.
with it? Yeah, exactly.
What man, and yeah, kind of like we were talking about earlier, to me, I see where you're coming from, and that does make sense. And I think my answer would be pretty synonymous for the most part. But just love in general is a complicated word, right? Like
It
I was
is.
saying, I can be loved by God. I can love my wife, my best friend, sushi, and playing golf, and they all mean different things. Or if I'm playing tennis, then that's a score. So I mean, love is all over the place, right? Um, but I guess just to kind of answer the question from I guess my perspective, I would say I would be more um, in alignment with the meaning of life being service too. Being servant hearted. Um, and I think that that's pretty close with love, right? Because in order to serve somebody, you have to have a genuine love in you to express that towards other people, to become a servant of all.
Yeah, and I think I think we're gonna need to dig into what love actually is and define it a little bit. And I think I would probably throw service in there as part of the definition of love, at least from my perspective, or at least, when I think of like the agape love that's used to describe God. Why don't we start by defining what love is? Where do we want to start?
So, are we defining what love itself is, or agape love first? Because those are two different things.
Well, whatever one you want to start with, because yeah,
Uh,
because I think if we look at like the Bible itself, there's going to be different words that's used in the Old and New Testaments for
Absolutely.
love. If we look at like just the dictionary definition, we're going to find something else. So we could start wherever you want.
I would say let's start out with just the regular old love, and then work our way up to agape as more of like the ultimate version, the most purest, truest form of it. So let's just start with regular old love. Uh,
Okay.
so I don't know if you want to go or I can go. It's up to you. I got Merriam Webster here, which
If you got Merriam-Webster, let's
oh
let's
yeah.
hear let's hear what they have to say.
So mind you, again, this crazy word love, this is the noun version of it because love is a noun and a verb. So that's fun. And so this basically says definition 1A would be strong affection for another arising out of kinship or personal ties. Two would be attraction based off sexual desire, affection, and tenderness felt by lovers. Number three would be affection based on admiration, benevolence, or common interests, excuse me, and says a sub would be an assurance of affection, warm attachment, enthusiasm, or devotion. The object of attachment, devotion, or admiration. To be loved, to be a beloved person means darling. And then just, going down to the verb, version of love, to feel great affection for, to hold dear or cherish, to feel a lover's passion, devotion, or tenderness, to like or desire actively, take pleasure in. So, I mean, just to kind of quick throw it out there. What
So
I
the
guess
first
most people would associate love to and with.
Yeah, so it sounds like the first few definitions was more focused on more of the noun, different versions of the noun, different nouns around love, different types of love in that regard. And then the second was more around the action, the verb,
Correct.
and that would be the difference between those two groupings there. But you're right. I think that's going to be more kind of general how people just in everyday life is going to probably use the word love. We just had Valentine's Day pass us not too long ago, and there's been a lot of talk about love. And, I think
Surface
for
level, yeah. Yeah.
the surface level love, where, what it looks like is a heart-shaped box full of chocolates, right?
Right.
And,
Right.
buying someone a card and a flower, and maybe, that's about it. Maybe you take it a step level and you do some sort of act of service, maybe by cooking dinner or taking someone out or what have you. But yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much sums it up in terms of what you're going to expect to see from the world and just a general idea of what love is. So let's maybe dig into I got some definitions here in front of me in terms of what the Old Testament says love is. And I got some words that I'm probably not going to be able to pronounce very well.
Those are always
But
fun.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully um we'll have some folks correct this on the enunciation in the comments, but how about I go through the Old Testament versions of love and then you maybe come back and talk about the New Testament. So, for the Old Testament, the first word I got is ahava, and it basically is just general. It's just a very general word for love, almost like your first definition you had in the dictionary there. It's used when we're talking about God's love for people or human love for God. The next one is a word called hesed, um, if I'm even close, and that's more like a covenant loyalty type of love. It's a steadfast love, and it's also linked to mercy. I probably should have mentioned that the first word ahava is it's used several times, notably in Deuteronomy 6:5 and Genesis 29:20. And then this one has said is used in Psalms 136 and Exodus 34:6. And then the third word for love that shows up in the Old Testament is, and this is the one I'm going to probably butcher the worst, it's something like rahaman, rahamim, something like that. And this one is more compassion and tender mercy. So the other one had mercy kind of lumped in with steadfast love and loyalty. This one is kind of mercy and compassion kind of linked together, but it's more like a parental
Got
mercy
oh,
and compassion, more like a
gotcha.
father or a mother's love. It's more of an emotional type of love. So those are the three different words that show up in the Old Testament.
Hmm, good deal. Yeah, so, uh on the other end, you know, what I've found concerning the different words used in Greek in the New Testament to describe love, there's actually four. Agape would be the fourth, um, but there is eros, eros, which is basically romantic love. So that's more or less in line with probably how most people would use it. You know what I mean? Kind of in alignment with the first definition of in Merriam-Webster. And then there's philia, philia, which is more of like a friendship love. You know, like it uses this reference here, as C.S. Lewis wrote in his book, The Four Loves. To the ancients, friendship seemed like the happiest and most fully human of all loves. So, I mean, again, you know, just a little bit different than the more or less like the you said buying chocolates, hey, how you doing kind of love. And
Right,
then
right.
we got the third one here is storge, I believe, and it might also be called affection or like a family love, right? Um,
Hmm.
it isn't actually used in the Bible, it's said, but the concept exists. Storage is based on familiarity. A person will love their family regardless of whether they are people they would be drawn to. Otherwise, family members often have nothing in common except blood. So, I guess it's more in line with that. And then, of course, we got agape, and I think we can kind of
Hey, friends. I just want to tell you about my book, Everyday Lean. After 25 years of leading continuous improvement projects in the manufacturing world, I came to a simple realization. Lean applies to any process because every process has waste. Whether you're baking a cake, developing software, or building an F-15, the same principles apply. Everyday Lean gives language and structure to what you're likely already doing. It's all about helping people and organizations make their work better every day. Everyday Lean is available now on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. Oops. Sorry, I was queuing that up for later and I started playing it.
no worries. But yeah, I think we'll just kind of stop right there, and we can get into agape more
well,
deeply in a minute.
well, you mentioned you said storage or storge or however you say it. That one doesn't show up in the Bible. I'm pretty sure eros doesn't show up in the Bible too. I know those are four Greek words for love, but I thought I know agape does and philia does, but I thought for sure eros doesn't show up. Did you?
It says eros is it also is not a word that appears in the Bible, but again, it plays a significant role in many Old Testament problems. It encompasses sexual and romantic love, and is the root word of the English word erotic, which is kind of crazy. Um, but yeah, it's often associated with sexual desire and lust. So that's probably the biblical tie to eros. So yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So yeah, so let's get into agape love. So I was queuing up this song because when I think of agape love, I think of this song. So I was gonna play a couple seconds of it. You probably know which one it was. Let me play it. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
I wrote this little love
Like
song.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like a
Old
story.
school throwback.
That's
I
right.
think you just get on the
Like
keys and
this.
start playing something.
Yeah. Shout out cross movement.
And the ambassador.
That's right.
It was love.
All right. So that's what I think of when I think of love and I think of agape love first and foremost. I think of, Jesus bleeding and clinging to a tree. I think of that sacrificial, that servant love that you talked about, earlier.
Absolutely.
To Now I know that's not the, perfect definition of agape love, but I think that song like really sums it up. So for anyone who's never heard that song, it's on an album called Christology in Layman's Terms by the Ambassador, who's part of
Right.
Cross Movement.
Right.
um, Definitely check out that song. Maybe we'll put a link to it in the show notes because I love the ambassador and I love that song.
Absolutely. Yeah. Still one of my favorites, man.
It stays in
Uh,
rotation. I mean, 20 plus years later, it stays
right,
in
right,
rotation.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess this basically says that to the Greeks, proper agape meant a general empathy or loving kindness for all people. Though in the Bible, Christians are in 10 expected to care for all in the name of Jesus Christ, Christianity took it one step further. Biblical writers use God as the standard for true agape. So, agape love in the Bible is love that comes from God. God's love isn't sentimental, it's part of his character. God loves from an outpouring of who he is. And that just leads me perfectly into one of the main focal points that I wanted to touch on, which is First John 4:8, which states, you know, that he basically is the source of love. And the verse is actually, whoever does not love does not know God, for God is love, right? So,
Yeah. So that was First John 4:8, right? So yeah, because that one makes it pretty clear. And I think 4:16 says it again, that God is love, right?
correct,
So it
right,
says it like twice in chapter 4. It basically said God is love,
correct. Right.
right?
Which lines up with your version of the meaning of life being love, because the meaning of life would definitely, I would
Well,
say, circle back to God.
right. So let's talk about that. So I would say that God is love, and
Y-
that's 100% true. And I
Yes.
would say that God is life, that he is the source of all life in the universe. And so, I would say that, to link life and love together, to me, they go in hand, pretty well, because God is love and God is life, or at least the source of all life. Without him, none of us have life, right?
Right. Right.
And when we're talking about, agape love, what I had here was self-giving, sacrificial love, unconditional love, love that seeks the good of others, covenantal and faithful love. Those were the things that I had um, come up with when I was looking up the word agape and what it refers to. And, heavy on the very first bullet there, the self-giving or sacrificial love. Ambassador was just singing about it. You referenced that with that servant, what you said at the beginning about being a servant. It just keeps going back to that. Like, love is an action, and it's a sacrificial action,
Well,
right?
what I like is those words that you use, like sacrificial and the other things that you said, because it also goes in line with I was saying earlier, where it's like this type of love is part of God's character. This is who he is. So those things, like it just it makes sense. They're right there in alignment with each other.
It's who he is, and there's so many different verses in the Bible that talk about love. And I think that, honestly, because it is who he is, and First John makes it pretty clear that God is love. I mean, think about this. What if you just read every verse in the Bible that has the word love and just replaced it with God? You could literally do that. So, when you're reading, whether it's, like, I think it's is it First Corinthians 13, that's like the love chapter. Like, you could literally replace love, with God, and it will tell you God is patient, God is kind, right? God is not self-seeking, God does not keep a record of wrongs, right? And I'm just quoting from memory. I don't have it in front of me. I know I'm probably getting something wrong here, but as you're going through, and it's saying that, you could desire all these spiritual gifts, you could desire to prophesy or to speak in other tongues, but love is greater than all of them. That's like saying God is greater than all of them, because we should
Absolutely.
we should want God. We should want love, we should want God more than we want any of those gifts or anything else from God.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100% agree. And that's, I think that that's the absolute correct perspective that we should all have,
Yeah.
and to keep in the forefront of our minds is, and not just in times like this, where we're speaking directly of love, which tends to, be more or less in what I would say, a mountain situation. But like even in the valleys, like knowing that he will never leave you for nor forsake you, because he is there and he is love and he still does care, even though sometimes it's hard for us to see through even the most noise, as you put it before.
Yeah, 100%. And so let me circle back for a second, because, we kind of started off, and I wanted to connect it to our previous conversation. And when people ask that question of us or of anyone, and they ask the question, well, why not just do whatever I want if I'm saved by grace through faith? I think we're missing the point of life in that question, which is to love. It's like, if we ask the average person, "Hey, if I paid you $10,000,000, would you work for me for 5 years?" Most people would probably say, "Heck yeah, that's a lot more salary than I'm ever gonna make anywhere else. I'll work for you for 5 years." But then if we said, "Well, let me just give you the $10,000,000 today and now come and work for me," then we all of a sudden we wanna have this different perspective, like, "Why do I wanna work? I got $10,000,000. I don't
Right,
wanna
right,
work." Right?
right,
And
right,
it's kind of the same thing. It's like, well, if I've already been given the prize, why run the race? Well, Paul makes it clear that we should run the race every day as if we're trying to win a prize. And so connecting the dots here, the way I kind of see it, and this is just my perspective as just a regular guy, is, the meaning of life is love. And so I shouldn't just sit on my laurels and not do anything. I should try to act out of love. I should try to keep love in the forefront of my heart and my mind, and everything I should do should be out of love, whether it's, doing something like fasting, like we talked about before, or
right.
praying, or giving, or just the way I spend my time, or the things I do, or the things I don't do. I should filter all those things through, am I loving by doing or not doing these things? Is it helping me to either increase my experience of God's love, which he's pouring out on me, but sometimes I duck from and I hide from because, I get distracted, or is it helping me to overflow that love onto other people? I think that should be the filter by which we filter our actions and our thoughts and our deeds, not the filter of, well, is it sinful or not sinful, or am I going to still be saved or not be saved? I think we're already past that. I think it should be, is it more or less love if I do this or don't do this? Does
Well,
that make
100.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think it goes back to, you know, the idea whenever, the Pharisees were asking Jesus about, oh, which commandments are the most important, and his answer is obviously, God first. But I mean, he was like, love your neighbor as you love yourself. You know what I mean? And it just kind of shows you just simply enough put, right? Like, look, whenever you are moving from that place, then and another thing, the thing about it is whenever our hearts, we're given a new heart, of flesh and not of stone. You know what I mean? I think that's both kind of like a symbolism, but also like an actual thing of being like, hey, look, man, this heart is going to be more loving, right? It's going to be more kind. It's gonna reflect the example of the person who gave you this heart of flesh, right? You know what I mean? Instead of stone. So, I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to that.
I do too. So let me throw out another question I just thought of. It just popped in my head. If we've spent some time defining what love is, right? And now we're kind of honing in on the agape love, the God, love, the love of God and God's love,
Right, right,
and
right.
all that. What would you say is the opposite of love?
I mean, the obvious first thing that comes to your mind is hate, right? But yeah, I mean, I guess we can start there. So
So
opposite of
I
love
think
is
that's
hate.
probably I think that's probably what most people say, is hate, but I would say that, in my opinion, I think the opposite of love is just apathy or indifference. And the reason why is because I would say that love, as we've defined it already, it requires action. It requires some sort of service. It requires us to care, whether it's caring, emotionally, or caring by actually acting and serving. Whereas apathy or indifference is like, I almost feel like even hatred, you got to have some sort of element of care to hate someone. But indifference, it's like you just doesn't matter what happens to them. It doesn't affect you at all.
Mhm.
What do you think about that?
And I can see that for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And I mean, yeah, I guess to a certain degree, it does take effort and energy to hate, But I mean, I still think that it may be, I don't know. I mean, I see your point. I would say both are applicable.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
Well, they have that saying, it's a thin line between love and hate, right? And I think even though that's a cliche saying, I think there's a truth, a hidden truth to that. which to me, I don't know if you could really truly hate someone unless you first, loved them. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like hatred is like something that came out of like a spurned love or like a love that was then returned with some sort of like betrayal. Like that to me, I don't know if you could really truly hate someone if you
Well,
don't really
and see, I
love
think
them first.
I think people throw that around loosely, in the same way that they do love, because
Yeah,
they're like, oh, I hate this, I hate that, and but
right,
I think it's from the perspective of, well, these are both emotions, but I think true love and true hate are drastically different, and there's a very wide gap in between them, because I mean, you think about it like this, we know that the character of God, he hates sin, and so he'll have no part of it. You know what I mean? It's not just like,
right,
oh, I don't like it kind of flippantly, like he hates sin. And so I think that in the true form, hatred, yeah, it's the other end of the spectrum of the most extreme feeling of dislike. And I mean, literally, if you hated something, right, you would just have absolutely no part in it. You know what I mean?
sure, sure,
But I think it just gets kind of thrown around, like, oh, I hate
yeah.
that. Like, no, you really don't.
Well, and I think in that example, like you just said, like God hates sin. To me, that even shows a love there too, because why does God hate sin? Well, he hates sin because he loves us so much and he
Right.
knows what sin does to us. Whether we're
Absolutely.
sinning and hurting ourselves or sinning and hurting each other, we are hurting someone or something that God loves. And so he hates when we sin, he hates sin for that reason. I mean, obviously, God is, perfect and he can't sin. It's totally contrary to his nature. But I think the real reason, at least from my opinion, why he hates it is because of the effects it has on that which he does love.
Well,
Um,
also, I mean, yeah, think about it like this: wouldn't you hate the thing that separated you from what you love? I would venture to say the most. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Um, Sin separated us, God's creation, from our Creator. You know what I mean? And had kept us apart for a very, very long time. And I think the fact that, I mean, there's a lot there, right? Like, God, we don't do anything for God. God doesn't need us for anything, right? But he
right.
wants us to
He
love
wants,
him. He
yeah,
created us to love him. And so, whenever the sin separation happened, I can see him just right in that moment being like, you know what, this thing right here, I hate it, because it,
yeah,
it took something that I created in my image and breathed life into, and was perfect, and sin corrupted it and took it away. you know
right.
um and so I think that that's a huge reason of why. And like you said, he's watched what our what we've allowed sin to do to us, to
Hmm.
and even though it, curing it, and even more so now, right, in the perspective of the new covenant, it's like he's like, man, I got sin figured out for y'all. I got this free gift that I want to give y'all because I love y'all. Just take it.
Right.
And people are like, I don't know if I want that. And that's
And
when,
people show apathy when they do that. They're
right.
like they're totally indifferent to God, which to me that shows more of, what I think the opposite of love is, which is that indifference because they're showing that towards God just like you have your kids that you pour out your love onto and then there's like millions of other kids across the world that I don't want to I don't mean to sound like, cold or heartless, but like if they live or die doesn't really affect us. We are totally indifferent for the most part to most of the people living in the world because we don't know them, we don't have that love for them. We're just totally indifferent to them. And this is not to say that we're like right or wrong or good or bad. It's just the nature of life on this planet when you got 8 billion people is, when something happens to someone that you know and you care about and you love, you feel a certain way and then, when something happens to other people, yeah, you could be empathetic and you could think, man, that really stinks. But like, we're not calling up people all over the world to try to figure out if they're doing okay or not because we don't know them. So we're indifferent. There's a difference there.
Yeah, I understand that, but I would say, and interested to hear what your perspective on this would be, but I would say that even indifference is a choice, right? Like, I mean, you're basically I mean, again, I would kind of lump those two at hate and indifference in the same category, because here's the thing, the story that comes to mind, and I heard it, I think, man, a while back, but it's such a powerful illustration, and I might not nail this correctly because I just saw it like one time, and I liked it, and I kind of committed it to memory, but not fully. So, anyways, here it goes. So the the general idea is basically, there's a guy walking like on top of a fence, right? And to his left he sees God, and to his right he sees the devil. And the long and short of it is, God's like, man, come to me, choose me. I love you. I sent my son to die for you. And then he looks to his right and sees the devil, and he's offering him all the things of the world, kind of like he did to Jesus, like, oh, money, cars, nice things, blah blah blah
Right,
blah.
right,
And so this guy is kind of sitting there looking back and forth, and he's like, man, I don't know which one to choose, because I want God? Absolutely, but I kind of want some things from over there also. And so he's kind of sitting here, struggling with this idea, and he says, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna be indifferent. I'm not gonna choose either one of y'all. And then the lights cut out, and the devil grabs him by the leg and starts dragging him to hell. And the guy's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He's like, "I stayed on the fence. I never chose." And the devil's like, "It's my fence." So there
right.
you go. You know what I mean? It's that
Yeah,
difference of it's you either choose God, or if you anything other than choosing God is just, indifference will lead you to the same
right.
place as
Well,
hate or
yeah, I've heard that story before, and that's a great story because I think that's a good way of illustrating the fact that, because of the sacrifice of Christ, like, our sins are forgiven. It's not forgiveness that's preventing us, from having eternal life and from, being saved. It's us making a decision to believe and have faith in our heart. And just like the guy didn't make a decision, he stayed on the fence and he went to hell. The forgiven person who doesn't believe doesn't have that life of God in them, so they don't have eternal life. When they die, they're gone. Whereas those who choose to believe, we get God, who is love, inside of us, and then we continue on. So I love that analogy. I think that's a great example of how, you know there's so many people who are forgiven that are going to be going to hell because it's not
everybody.
forgiveness.
Everybody
It's
is
not forgiveness.
forgiven. Right, right. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not
Like,
forgiveness that saves.
and man, I really, maybe we need to spend more time just driving that point home. Everybody is forgiven. I don't care what you've done. I don't care what you've been through. You are forgiven, and just that idea, because I mean, a lot of the things that I've heard people say, that kind of stop them from even wanting to seek God, is like, man, I'm too far gone. And I mean, it has this duality to it, right? Because I sit here and I think about, like, I sit here in awe when I'm like, the creator of the universe, the heavens and the earth, of everything, knows who I am, and loves me and cares about me personally. Like, that blows my mind. But on the other end of that, you have somebody who's like, man, you know, I've done so much bad, blah 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 blah. Like, he would never. I don't deserve it. And it's like, wait a minute. Understand this. Wrap your head around this, and let's start from here. He loves you enough that he's already sent his son to die to forgive you. So quit thinking of yourself in the way that this world looks at you, as a dirty, rotten sinner who has done X, Y, and Z. No, look at yourself from the way God looks at you, which is his child, who he sent his begotten son to die on behalf of, so that the 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 playing field is leveled, right? And all you have
Hmm.
to do is have faith in that, and receive another free gift of grace and salvation. And it's too many people don't understand that they are already forgiven, and that
Hmm.
makes it possible, right, for them
Right.
for them to receive grace and salvation, and it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it's like we talked about before because so many churches, so many pastors, so many Christians are hung up on the sin issue, like we're still trying to become forgiven, whether it's, whether they say it or not, whether they go to a priest and confessed or not. A lot of people still live their lives as if they're not forgiven, and they have this need to be forgiven when that's not it at all. We are forgiven. What we need to do is experience more of God's love and let that love overflow through us, and the only way we could do that is by having faith and letting God come inside of us and live in us and filling us up with himself, which means he's filling us up with his love. And that's a hard thing for us to comprehend sometimes because we do want to do something.
Well,
It's
because
I think
yeah,
I think I
it's
shared
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, I think I shared this example before, but it's just like trying to get in shape. Like it's hard for my brain to understand that the best thing I could do is just eat less and do nothing. Like I want to just go work out as much as possible. I want to go work out every day for hours and hours at a time, but then that just makes me eat more and that sabotages my goals. It's like the hardest thing for my brain to realize is that literally if I just sat there and did nothing, I would lose more weight than doing all the things.
Yeah. Well, and it's just trying to unlearn the idea that gets taught more often than not, that it's more of like a conditional thing, right?
Right.
What are you doing, or transactional? Like, hey, listen, if you cut out X, Y, and Z, then you receive X, Y, and Z, and it's
Exactly.
not those things at all. You know what I mean?
It's
It's
not.
trying to unlearn that type of mentality of what can I do? What can I do? That's, I mean, that you'll get nowhere. You know what I mean?
Which I will say, man, like one of my favorite songs, and this is kind of leading me to the next thing that I want to talk about, which is our personal experiences. But one of my favorite songs, like Christian, like worship, like praise and worship type of songs, is a 363 song that basically says, "Look what you've done for me. What could I do for you?" I don't know if you know that song, but it's like, let me see if I sing it a little bit. It's like, "Look what you've done for me. What can I do for you, my Lord?" And it's like, really, there's nothing we could do. Like, all we could really do is just have faith and just believe in the one that God sent and just let him love us. And by doing that, we are really doing. I mean, man, I put out an album years ago called The Tip, and the whole premise of it was God's already paid the bill. I want to at least leave the tip, right? It's like we have it in our nature. We want to do something,
Right,
we
right.
want to contribute, right? But anyway, like I said, that's kind of leading me to the next thing I wanted to kind of segue into, which is like our personal experiences. So my question for you, man, is like, when do you like really like feel loved either by God or just, by anyone? When do you feel
Man.
loved or when do you feel like you are the most loving? What do you think about that?
Whoa.
Either feel love's coming into you or coming out of you. When do you feel that? Hey, friends, I just want to tell you about my book, Everyday Lean. After 25 years of leading continuous improvement projects in the manufacturing world, I came to a simple realization. Lean applies to any process because every process has waste. Whether you're baking a cake, developing software, or building an F 15, the same principles apply. Everyday Lean gives language and structure to what you're likely already doing. It's all about helping people and organizations make their work better every day. Everyday Lean is available now on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles.
So, this is how much time you got? No, just this is kind of, it's
You
loaded,
got all
right?
the time you need, man.
It's loaded because I mean, as well as I do, and to know, you know, not trying to put blame on anybody, but we grew up in a household where love wasn't openly expressed, like not expressed, but it was like I didn't hear "I love you" growing up a lot, just because of different reasons and things of that nature, right? So love always kind of felt weird to me, like hearing, just like even just being like, "Hey, I love you," was always a weird thing
Sure,
for me.
sure.
I always, like, whenever I saw that kind of thing, the first thing that popped into my mind was like old school, like 80s sitcoms, right? Where it's like Leave It to Beaver, like, "Hey, I love you, Dad." And it's like, no, we don't do that around where I'm from. So it was always just kind of this weird thing, man. And so, it felt weird, right? Like I didn't really know, like, matter of fact, not even just love, but just like emotions in general. The way I used to process things was growing up, music was such a huge part of my life because I didn't know how to get things that were in my heart, and in my head, like, out of my mouth. So instead of trying to figure out the words to put together, like if I heard it in a song, I'd be like, "Hey, listen, go listen to the song. That's what I mean." You know what I mean? And that's just kind of how I process things.
Well, I
Um,
mean, if someone else has done all the work of putting their emotions and feelings into some words that's,
and you can
beyond your
relate.
ability that you can relate to, I think
Yeah.
that's a great strategy.
So, and I mean, that's what I did for the longest time, man, just because I didn't know how to do it. I couldn't formulate those kind of concepts
Right.
myself.
I mean,
Um,
that's where the whole concept of the mixtape comes from, right? You give someone a mixtape that you, care
right.
about. "Hey, I
Oh,
made you this
100%.
mixtape, and it's
Right.
got all these songs on it." Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so that was what that was for a long time. And man, th- the craziest thing is, I've younger, I've been in puppy love and things like that. And at the time, I didn't think it was that. I thought it was a genuine thing. But the first time that I would say, ex- felt like I knew what love was in a completely different way than I'd ever experienced it before was prior to my real walk with God. And it was whenever I was dating my wife, in the beginning. And I did something terrible, and I broke her heart, and she had every reason to give up on me and walk away, just like I had seen other people do, for no reason before in my life. And that was my expectation. I was like, well, man, I've had people that I have not done anything to just kind of exclude themselves from my life. So I've given her a reason. So why would she
Right,
not? And
right.
and she didn't. And she told me it was because she was like, I know that you made this mistake, but she was like, I see you, and I think that I'm not going to basically judge you off of the worst thing that you've done because I see your heart. I know that you're a better person. So basically, she gave me the benefit of the doubt, and that was, man, that was huge to me at the time because I'm like, wait, what do you mean you're not gonna walk away? You're not gonna discard me even though
You know
I've
you
given you a reason to? Like,
you know
whoa,
what
this
that
is something different. You know what I mean?
you know what that just triggered for me? It triggered, a definition that we didn't quite touch on earlier, which is that love is a choice. Because
Absolutely.
what I'm hearing you say is there was a choice in that moment, and you thought maybe the choice would go one way, but
Yeah.
it went a different way.
Absolutely, man. And then, you know, uh um so that was one pivotal, like that, like I said, that hit me different. And that's, I knew right then, I'm like, I'm gonna marry this woman because I've never felt like anybody has actually legitimately loved me like that. And if they had,
Mm,
then maybe they weren't good at expressing it because I hadn't felt it like that. So it was a big revelation to me. So then kind of fast forward, man, and this is kind of crazy, to walking with God and kind of feeling like like it just washed over me, like the understanding of God's love for me. And the craziest thing is I remember being at home and I was cooking, and I was sitting there, like, chopping up some vegetables and stuff like that, and I was listening to some worship music, and um that Phil Wickham song, was playing, and it's like, "Who pulled me out of that pit? He did." And like, dude, it just, like, all of a sudden, like, I just, like, I wasn't even thinking about it, like, just started bawling, crying, and I'm just like, man, like, like, he really did die for me. You know what I mean? Like, and
yeah,
not only, like, people are like, so what? He died for me. People who look at it from that position, and not realizing where they were headed. So I guess it was that moment where, like, I can visualize it, like I was literally in the pits of hell. Like, that's where I'm headed. You know what I mean?
right,
And some
right,
people don't think that far in advance. And man, it just really, it was just like, man, thank you, God. Like,
yeah,
it was an overwhelming feeling. And I know I've been going on, but just to finish off, what fills me with the most love now is what I feel like is fulfilling my purpose, right? So, according to being a man of God, based on scripture. So, what I love is sharing the word of God with my kids, teaching my boys how to be young men of God, and really providing for them, like actually being, you know what I mean? Before, I'm kind of like, dang, these bunch of moochers, you know what I mean? Like, I'm over here working and they're just hanging out,
right, right,
and I really, I guess maybe it's because I had a different view of what that looked like compared to, like, where I am now, and my understanding, and man, like, I feel like realistically, it's a blessing to be able to provide for them, and take care of them, and to know that they feel safe and secure, because of what's God's allowing me to steward. So
yeah.
that's great.
Well, thanks for giving us our, salacious headline for the thumbnail. These kids are a bunch of moochers. We're gonna put that on the thumbnail.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
kidding. No, but so you kind of hit on one thing that I was gonna share as well. So like for me, when I think of like how if I'm thinking specifically about like God's love and his agape and how I experience it, I think first about like how I viscerally experience it in my body. And music is one of the ways that do that, man. I mean,
absolutely.
when I think of like a good worship service or even just listening to worship music in my car, certain songs like The Blessing by Elevation Worship or I Speak Jesus by Charity Gale, You Say by Lauren Daigle. I feel it like in my body, you know what I mean? And like sometimes like, I get choked up just even thinking about those songs and I viscerally feel it. Not to mention if I'm in a church service and I could also feel the vibrations of the music. But like to me, that's how I feel it like viscerally in my body. And then also when I watch The Passion of the Christ, man, as cliche as that might sound, but like when I watch that movie and I see what Jesus went through physically, for me, like that does make me feel it, makes me feel his love. Um, so that's how I feel it like very viscerally. Now, I also feel it just by thinking and reflecting. So like when I'm out in nature, for example, just like on a hike, or having quiet time where I just think about my life and all the times that I've screwed up and all the things that God has, forgiven in my life and all the things he's brought me through and walked alongside me through, whether it's being fired or laid off or moving many many times and having to start all over, like all the different things that I've been through. God's been there with me, and when I think and I reflect on that, it makes me feel his love. And then when I think about my kids and how much I love them, whether they know it or not, I do love them, and I love them a whole heck of a lot. They're rebellious teenagers right now who think I don't know anything and that I don't care, but I do know a few things and I do care. But I think about how much I love them and how much I've loved them from the day they were born, how much I cared about them and how much I wanted to protect them and wanted just the best for them and still do. And then I have to think, well, if that's how I feel about my kids, how much more does God feel that way about me? You know
Oh
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and so those are kind of the ways that like, I personally feel and experience God's love. But one thing that, I would say kind of underlies all of that, and I'm gonna go on for at least 7 more minutes because you went on for 12, so I'm just kidding. Uh, but one thing, seriously, is like just spending time with God, either in prayer or in the Word or in worship. Like all those things take time. Reflecting takes time, and that's the same way I've experienced love through my relationships with people, whether it's with my wife or with my kids or with you or any other family members. It's by spending time on the phone, time in person. And I think that is a way that a lot of people experience love is by just, spending that time. And it's funny, we use the word spend time as if time is something that we have in a little purse or wallet that we are actually giving out, and it really is that, right? Because we are giving hours and minutes of ourselves to people when we are spending time with them. And so for me, one thing that kind of is the opposite of that for me is when someone does tell me they love me but don't want to spend any time with me, then I don't feel loved by them, whether it's they don't pick up the phone to call, or every time I talk to them they're in a hurry to get off the phone, or they drive within an hour of my house, but they don't even let me know so we could meet up and actually spend time together. Like to me, whenever those kind of things happen, I actually feel unloved in those situations because I think it's very important that, there is some time that is shared. At least for me, it's super important. Maybe it's not as important for everybody, but at least for me, that is a big element of feeling and even be able to give love is by, spending that time. Hey, friends, I just want to tell you about my book, Everyday Lean. After 25 years of leading continuous improvement projects in the manufacturing world, I came to a simple realization. Lean applies to any process because every process has waste. Whether you're baking a cake, developing software, or building an F-15, the same principles apply. Everyday Lean gives language and structure to what you're likely already doing. It's all about helping people and organizations make their work better every day. Everyday Lean is available now on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles.
No, absolutely, man. Otherwise, it's lip service. You know what I mean? It's just like I said, in the same way that people throw away, oh, I hate this, I hate that. Like, no, if you know, or oh yeah, look, I love you, but the actions don't match the proclamation. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, I feel like God knows exactly all about that. But no, man, the crazy thing is, it kind of you know to speak to your point about worship music, man. Like I mentioned before, music has always been such a huge part of my life, man. It really has. And one of the
Hmm.
things that I thought that I was going to struggle with the most was not listening to secular music, because I mean I knew every genre, liked every genre, could relate to every genre, and it's always played a huge part of my life, man. And I used to have this idea like, man, Christian songs are all the same. They're just talking about God. Like, it gets boring. It's old. And
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and so, but whenever you truly love God, then you don't mind that every song's about Him. It's like whenever you first fall in love with a girl, you know what I mean? You turn every song to being about her. So in the same way. So it's crazy. But I say that to say this: whenever it was actually easy. So, now the only thing that I listen to is Christian music, and the crazy thing is I've seen just how that, right, has changed so many things, just almost subconsciously. Like, another thing that I used to have a foul mouth. I used to, every other word out of my mouth was a curse word. And I guess because I'm not listening to music that's every other word is a curse word, like, it was easier for me to just stop, because it wasn't such a big part of everything that I was consuming, right? It wasn't all these seeds being planted. So if I'm not hearing curse words, and I'm working on not saying them, it's easier to not say. I noticed that I was like more upbeat, more happy, more like you said, like, it's like spending time hearing this positivity, and this love being expressed towards our God, and all those ways. It did make me, more cognizant of the way that I spoke to my wife, the way that I loved showed my love to her, and the kids, and just people in general, man. And so it was just this little tweak. I was like, you know what? Like, a lot of times, like, we leave it playing on the little radio in our garage, you know what I mean? And it's just always on. And so if we're in there just hanging out, it's just kind of in the background, man. And I love that. You know what I mean? Whenever I'm at work,
yeah.
sometimes I'll just throw on my little, playlist, and just play it low, because it fills up the noise, and it really does. I feel like it refreshes my spirit, man.
Well,
I
there's a
really do.
saying, and I forget how the saying goes, but it's something like, music and like soothes the savage beast or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? There's like a saying. I don't know exactly how it goes, but there's a reason why they say that because it does have an effect on
Well, and
people.
I guess there's biblical evidence to that, because remember, David playing his harp for King Saul. You know what I mean? To
Yeah,
kind
it
of
calmed down Saul. Yeah,
100%. So, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, man.
Yeah, so I'm right there with you, man. I mean, the music is a big part of it. Spending time's a big part of it. But I wanted to circle back one more time to, earlier we were talking about our definition of the opposite of love, and it made me have a thought, and then I lost it. Now I got it back. So,
Good.
uh, s- so what I was gonna say is, if you think about what is the opposite of God, some people might say the opposite of God is the devil, just like some people might say the opposite of love is hate. But again, the opposite of God is not the devil. The devil's nowhere near being an equal to God. So how could it be opposite? So to me, the opposite of God would be if there was no God. It'd be an absence of God. It would be basically atheism. That would be the opposite of God, which to me kind of goes with the whole opposite of love being apathy or indifference. It's the opposite of love is the absence of love. So to me, like if you're looking at God equals love, then atheism leads to indifference or apathy. So, it's easy to look at that and say, well, wait a second. I know some people who don't believe in God, but they still exhibit God and they may exhibit love. I mean, and that may be true in certain degrees. And you may also look at Christians, some Christians out there. It might be easy to judge other Christians and say, well, hey, I don't see love in those Christians. And that may be true. There may be Christians who don't do a good job of showing love. And there might be atheists out there who do a better job of expressing love. But what I would say to that though is when a Christian is not showing love, they're going against their nature if they have the Spirit of God inside of them. Whereas when an atheist is showing love, they're going against their nature, because if you took either to their extreme, you take someone with God inside of them to the extreme, you get Jesus. You take someone who doesn't believe in God to the extreme, and you get Hitler, or worse than
Yeah.
Hitler, right? You get
Yeah.
someone who absolutely has no care for anybody else, who is willing to do whatever it takes for them and for their goals and for their objectives. And anyway, I just wanted to circle back and show that connection that I was thinking of between, you know, apathy and atheism. Um, just like God and love is one and the same. I see that as kind of being the antithesis.
I got you. Yeah, man. You know, ultimately, like I said, I don't even want to know what the other side is. You know, I feel like I've spent, you know, enough time without not necessarily, you know, all the way on the other end of the spectrum, but I think I've felt spent enough of my time without feeling the presence of God in my life like I do now, and you know, I think back a lot, and I'm just like, man, what, you know, what a waste. Like, you know, unfortunately, I'm like, man, I really wish that I would have, you know, it's not like he wasn't there and making himself available and being evident in my life whenever I didn't even realize it. I just wish I would have leaned in a little bit more, man. And you know, I feel like it would have definitely prevented a lot of stupid things that I've did and a lot of wasted years and living in, you know, hurt states and, you know, unforgiveness and just being bound, man. Um, you know, and man, it's crazy. So there's a few songs that I have in my playlist that a lot of people haven't even heard. Like there's one that every time it comes up, man, like I don't care how many times I've heard it, like I just gotta stop. It stays in rotation, and it's by this girl. Her name is Brooke Ligertwood, and the name of the song is Desert Song. And I love, you know, she's basically just kind of talking about, you know, this is her prayer in the desert, and she goes on. But the way the song ends, I love. I think it's so beautiful. She says, "I know I'm filled to be emptied again, and the seed I've received, I will sow." And I just love that, man. You know what I mean? Like that's basically how I feel. You know, now where I'm at, you know, now that I've experienced this love, like I know I'm filled up, like Jesus will fill me up with all these things, you know, his joy and his love. And I'm like, man, let me go pour these out. And then you know, on everybody, and the seed that I received, I want to sow that also. You know what I mean? Because I know what it's done for and to me. You know what I mean? So
I just got one clarifying question. You said you love that. Which Greek version of love were you referring to when you said you love that?
uh, yeah,
Put
yeah,
you on the spot there. Was that
yeah.
Storge? Was that
Uh, yeah, it would have to be the either the Storge or the Philly. It definitely wasn't the Eros because I don't know her like that, and I'm a happily married man. You know, so yeah, I
All
don't know,
right,
but
good answer, good answer.
yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, man, no,
Well,
it's a lot, really, you know, and I mean, look, we barely scratched the surface. I feel like because I mean, it's man, it's so multifaceted, both in and out of the Bible. You know what I mean? There's so much there. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Yeah, there is a lot there, and I guess, if I had to, like, just kinda sum it up and, leave any takeaways for anyone out there who might be listening and they're like, "Alright, you guys been talking about love and, you connected it to the meaning of life, and yes, you're saying that you think the meaning of life is love." But, if I had to say, like, what my biggest takeaway is, it's that, for me, I really do believe that the purpose of the Christian life is to love, to, experience God's love more. Not that he loves us more, but that we get to experience more of it by kind of turning down the volume on some of the other things in life and turning up the volume on, his love, by, reducing that noise. And also I would say by, pouring out that love, letting that love overflow through us. So we got to be filled up first. So that way we have something that we could
absolutely.
share. and pour out, but it's so important that we do share it and we do let it pour out, because I do think that is the purpose. That is the purpose. And that, whether are looking at the greatest commandment, being love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loving your neighbor as yourself, it's back to love, love, love. Love God by letting him love you, love your others by letting his love flow through you. And that means your wife, that means your kids, that means your coworkers, your boss, your enemy, the other political party that you vote against. It means like
Amen.
everybody in your life, like let love be what guides your actions and your thoughts and your deeds. Not a list of commandments, not a list of rules, not whether or not it's going to help you get ahead in life or get promoted or get, the policy passed that you want. Let love be the thing that determines your steps, that guides you in your actions, in your thoughts, in your deeds. And I think that's a mirror that we should always be holding up to ourselves at all times. Is, am I acting out of love? If I'm going to go and do this thing, is this going to be something that's done for me, for personal ambition, for selfishness, for my vainglory, or is this going to be something that's going to be done out of love for my family, for my community, for fill in the blank, right? I think that that's something that we should always be thinking about and should always be in the back of our minds whenever we do anything. And if we do, then guess what we're not focusing on, man? We're not focusing on sin. We're no longer thinking about sin like as
Mm-mm.
if we're, oh my gosh, I got to walk this tightrope and not worry about sin. No, we're not worried about sin because we're focusing so much on love. And as I walk more in that love, then I'm not even thinking about sin. I'm going to look back one day. I'm going to say, oh, I can't even think of the last time I did X, whatever it is, right? I can't even think about the last time I said a swear word, if that's something you're trying to overcome, or the last time I had a drink, or the last time I, looked at those images, or whatever it is. We're gonna look back and think like, man, it's been a year, it's been 5 years, it's been 10 years. What I wasn't even counting because it wasn't important to me, because what I was focusing on was moving forward and what I'm chasing after, and not what I'm running away from or trying to fight against. And I think that's really kind of at the heart of it all for me. Is that that's what the Christian life should be about. It should be not about like, hey, can I just do whatever I want because I'm saved by grace? It should be, how do I now let this love that God has given me? He gave me the $10 million for 5 years of service. I can't sit back now and say I'm rich, I don't got to work. It's like, no, I'm going to sit back now and I'm going to say, hey, how do I, really bless others with what I've been blessed with, which in our case is love? How do I bless those around me with this love that God has given me? And we've defined it for everybody who's listening and what that means. It's that sacrificial service. It's that putting other people first. It's that giving of yourself to the point of even death, if need be.
Yeah, man, and this is something that I learned um in high school, right? It's like the way our brains work, right? Our brains don't associate words like don't or do or yes or no. They don't always associate, make these connections. So like if this is the example that I was given in high school in psychology. They would say, hey, don't think about a purple elephant. And
Hmm.
then a purple elephant pops into your mind, even though I said don't do it. Your mind just gravitates that way. So, in the same way they say, if you people who are anti-war are actually promoting war because anti doesn't register, just the word war. So they say if you want to be
Right.
anti-war, be pro-peace, right? And so
Right.
I look at this in the same light, man. So you think
You're
about it like
right.
this: if all the Old Testament, Old Covenant was don't sin, don't sin, don't sin. Focal point sin, right? Well, New Covenant we have grace. If you if you go and I challenge anybody listening to go get into your Bible and see how many times in the New Testament that not only love is mentioned, but love in reference to one another or everybody. I got a couple references in front of me, right? So you look at 1 John 4:7-8. Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love, right? We've already established that. John 13:34. A new commandment I give you: love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. Romans 5:8. God demonstrates his own love for us while we were still sinners. He died for us. 1 Peter 4:8. Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers a multitude of sins, right? Galatians 5:13. Serve one another humbly in love. So like there's this continuous thing. And to your point, Randy, like you said, if instead of being like, oh wow, I have grace, what can I get away with? If you replace all that time you spend trying to say, oh, how can I avoid sin? How can I not sin? How can I cut out this sin? And just saying, you know what? How can I be more loving, like Christ has explicitly told me to be?
Exactly.
How can I love one, love my neighbor as myself today? How can I do that? And if your new focus stops being, is now how can I love instead of how can I stop sinning, then you will see a drastic change in your walk and in your life,
100%.
and your relationship with not just everybody in front of you, but with God Almighty as well. I believe that.
Yeah, just to go back to that analogy, the analogy I used earlier about, someone paying you $10 million one more time. If someone were to give you $10 million, I guarantee for most people, they're going to spend more time thinking about what they get to do now versus what they no longer have to do. Sure, we might think I don't have to go to work anymore, but after that, we're going to be thinking I get to go on vacation, I get to pay off my house, I get to buy my kids all a new car. We're thinking about all the things we get to do, not the things necessarily that we no longer have to do, right? And it's the same way with God's grace and with God's love. It's like, we get all of this, and so we shouldn't spend our time thinking about what we no longer need to do. We should be thinking about what we get to do now that we have that love, because that's the meaning of life, man. That's
Uh,
that's the purpose for why we're
yeah,
here.
with such a blessing, how much more can you be a blessing? You know,
Exactly. One
so
one last verse that I just wanted to share that I didn't share earlier. Maybe we did reference it, but I don't think we read it all. Which was 1 John 4:18, which I don't think we read the whole thing, but I wanted to just read it. It says, um, "Such love has no fear, because perfect love expels all fear." And I just wanted to just iterate that because it says, "Perfect love expels all fear," and so like you could almost say that, in a way, fear is the opposite of love too, right? Because if we're saying that perfect love casts it out, and that just goes back to what we were saying earlier about like if we are saved by grace, what does that mean for us? And what it means is we shouldn't have to fear. And then the rest of that verse says, if we are afraid, it is for fear of punishment. And this shows that we have not fully experienced his perfect love. So for me, what the second half of that verse is saying, it's saying that, look, if you're really experiencing God's perfect love, you don't have any fear. You don't have any fear that maybe you've sinned too much, you've crossed the line, you're going to lose your salvation, you're going to get some sort of punishment, or you're not going to get some sort of reward. You don't have that fear because you've experienced God's perfect love. And now that love is flowing through you as you're going out there and living the meaning of life.
right, right. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind.
A
Right.
sound
So
mind. That's right. Or self
absolutely.
control or self discipline in some versions. But
Right,
yeah,
right, right, right.
100%.
So yeah, man.
All right, man. What you
Good stuff.
think?
Yeah, I think that'll probably about wrap it up for this. Like I said again, I feel like we've barely scratched the surface. You can go on and on, but I think sufficiently we've kind of touched on the main objectives. So
All right. Well, hey, I think that does it for this episode of Walk Talk. So thank you all so much for listening. If you haven't already, please follow the show. And before you go, leave us your thoughts in the comments below.
yes, sir.
God bless.
God bless.
Hey, friends, I just want to tell you about my book, Everyday Lean. After 25 years of leading continuous improvement projects in the manufacturing world, I came to a simple realization. Lean applies to any process because every process has waste. Whether you're baking a cake, developing software, or building an F 15, the same principles apply. Everyday Lean gives language and structure to what you're likely already doing. It's all about helping people and organizations make their work better every day. Everyday Lean is available now on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles.